It's 2006 and a show dares to ask if you could root for a serial killer. And not just any serial killer, but one who follows a code, who hunts other murderers, a forensic blood spatter analyst by day and a meticulous executioner by night. Dexter didn't just pose the question, but it made millions say yes. But by 2013, that same audience was asking, what the hell happened to the show? Ladies and gentlemen, I think there is a clear rise and an inevitable, monumental fall that led to the reputation that Dexter has to date in the eyes of many, and that's exactly what we're going to be exploring in this video, so tonight's the night. Let's talk about the rise and fall of Dexter. Now, before Dexter started, TV heroes were cops, lawyers, and doctors, the good guys with quirks, but a protagonist who was also a cold-blooded killer, that was revolutionary. Airing on Showtime, Dexter pushed the boundaries, influenced anti-hero titans like Breaking Bad, and for a while stood amongst TV's greatest, until it wasn't. Today we're tracing Dexter's ascent to TV royalty and its stumble into infamy, really. What made it great? Where did it fall apart? And why, even after that disastrous finale, does Dexter still matter? From the ice truck killer to that lumberjack nightmare, we've got a lot to cover, so let's dive in. Dexter introduces us to one of TV's most compelling anti-heroes, played flawlessly by Michael C. Hall. He's a serial killer with a moral compass, molded by his adoptive father, Harry, who teaches him to channel his urges by only killing the guilty. The ice truck killer storyline was it was masterful. A game of cat and mouse, teasing Dexter's past, leading to the shocking reveal, his brother Brian. And that moment when Dexter holds Brian, torn between his family and his code, it really is just haunting. That wasn't just a crime show. This was a psychological study wrapped in a thriller. And the thing is, critics ate it up. Fans loved the voiceovers, the dark humor, and the freshness of it all. Dexter wasn't just good, it was straight up addictive. But taking a step back, how do you top something like that? Well, by making Dexter the target. Season 2 flips the script. The Bay Harbor Butcher is being hunted by his own colleagues. Stokes sniffing around, tension through the roof. Deb's PTSD from Season 1, a great emotional arc. And Lila, absolutely unhinged and my favorite villain. One of my favorite villains, I guess I should say, I'll be honest. Hall wins a Golden Globe, ratings climb, and Dexter is peaking. Enter Miguel Prado, played by Jimmy Smits, a DA who seems like Dexter's kindred spirit until he isn't. Their friendship was obviously very twisted, and the rooftop confrontation was one of the best parts of that season. When it all finally broke, it was just phenomenal. But meanwhile, Dexter's life is changing. Marriage, fatherhood, a killer balancing family and murder. The stakes felt fresh, they felt new, and Dexter just straight up seemed unstoppable. If there's a high point, it's easily Season 4. John Lithgow's Trinity Killer was just beyond chilling. Every moment he's on screen is just gold. His psychological warfare against Dexter is brutal. His Emmy win is easily more than deserved. But the finale, showing Rita's death, was just earth-shattering, and fans were shattered. Some called it genius, others felt betrayed. But one thing was for certain, Dexter would never be the same. And after a pretty long break between Season 4 and 5, Season 5 introduces Lumen, a revenge-driven victim of a human trafficking ring. Julia Stiles does fine, but the chemistry, honestly, was a little lacking, and the story was just there. Like, I think it's easy to say the best part about Season 5 was Lumen and Dexter, even though I really do think their chemistry was pretty much non-existent. The rest of the story just didn't, it wasn't a story. I don't know what it was. It was a story. It was a story of Dexter, but you could tell that the writing fell off. You could tell it wasn't the same as it used to be. And that's because it wasn't. This was written by Scott Buck after Clyde Phillips had left the show. This was a totally different Dexter. Now, Season 6 just outright jumps the shark. The religious killer arc had promise, but the twist was terrible. And Deb falling in love with Dexter, fans hated it. They absolutely hated it. And I understand why. It was disgusting and it wasn't something to see on screen. But overall, this was just, like, who wrote this season? I don't even know how you could get a season like this. Between Deb falling in love with Dexter and between, honestly, the Doomsday Killer was just such a boring story. Or the fact that earlier in the show you introduced this character who serves no purpose because everything he explains to Dexter just gets thrown right out the window once he dies. I'm talking about Uncle Sam. Did I just say Uncle Sam on camera? I meant Brother Sam. I'm keeping that in because that was ridiculous. All in all, I just don't know what the writers were smoking. I don't know where that season came from. But at least that one really was just one eyesore. It was a pimple. We have one more we're going to get to. But season 7 does try to recover from that. Isaac Serco is a great villain, and LaGuerta's investigation is intriguing. This is the manhunt that I think a lot of people wanted. Unfortunately, it was the only manhunt in Dexter, and it didn't really go to anything. But Deb killing LaGuerta at the end felt rushed. And again, like I said, this was the manhunt. We didn't get any of it in season 8. We got this, and that's pretty unfortunate. But I will say, Deb killing LaGuerta did feel rushed. I think that was the only, I guess, setback you could say of this season. I think the rest, it kind of did pick up. Like, Isaac Serco was good. That storyline was definitely interesting. And just overall, the pace being higher because of LaGuerta doing this investigation was very, very interesting. But Deb coming to the conclusion to kill LaGuerta, while I thought was very interesting to see and was a great plot twist, definitely didn't seem like it would be something that she would do. It didn't really feel in character, but I get it. It was a very tense moment. I do understand that. Regardless, it was still clear that momentum was slipping, even if this season was a high, which this one was one of my favorites for sure. It's just not as bad as season 8. My favorite season of Dexter. That's a joke. Oliver Saxon as the villain, boring. Masuka's long-lost daughter, pointless. Hannah McKay's return, forced. Honestly, even though I liked it, it's very easy to say that one was forced. And the finale, Dexter fakes his death and abandons his son and becomes this? What?
You what?
Fans were furious. I'm furious. I'm apoplectic, as a matter of fact. Online petitions for a rewrite flooded in. Critics called it one of TV's worst endings. It was a disaster. It was a true piece of shit. This, in a lot of ways, was worse than Game of Thrones in the eyes of some fans. Some fans thought it was better. I don't know. I think the finale itself was terrible. I really do. I don't think there's any way around that, but it was a train wreck. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. Ladies and gentlemen, to understand why Dexter fell, we first have to recognize why it rose so high. The first 4 seasons didn't just succeed because of an interesting premise. They worked because of the execution. At its peak, Dexter was a masterclass in suspenseful storytelling with a gripping internal conflict that kept us glued to the screen. And the key to that success was a clear, creative vision. Showrunner Clyde Phillips and his team understood that Dexter wasn't just about murder. It was about morality. Could a man conditioned to kill ever truly change? Seasons 1 through 4 of Dexter built that tension with precision, never ever losing sight of Dexter's internal struggle. His kills weren't just violent spectacles. They were psychological chess matches, moments that made us question our own justice. And of course, there was Michael C. Hall. The man didn't just play Dexter Morgan, he was Dexter Morgan. I swear Michael C. Hall was born to play this character. His ability to make us sympathize with a remorseless killer was nothing short of incredible. The deadpan delivery, the subtle flickers of emotion, the internal monologues dripping with dark humor, it was perfection. His performance alongside a supporting cast that was extremely strong gave Dexter a depth that most crime shows just could never achieve. But let's not forget the pacing. The first 4 seasons moved with a purpose. Every major event, Brian's reveal, Dokes' pursuit, and Miguel's betrayal, or Even Trinity Killer's reign of terror just felt earned. Each new season escalated the stakes, keeping us on edge. Every time Dexter killed, we weren't just watching, we were feeling it very clearly. The suspense was electric. At its best, Dexter didn't just tell a good story, it made us question ourselves. Why were we rooting for a killer? Could he ever find redemption? And most importantly, when would he finally get caught? But then it all started to fall apart. So what went wrong? When Clyde Phillips left, he took Dexter's core identity with him. The storytelling lost direction and the cracks really did start to show. Instead of tight, purposeful arcs, we got drawn out, inconsistent narratives that felt more like filler than meaningful progression. One of its biggest issues was repetition. Instead of building towards a satisfying conclusion, Dexter became very formulaic, and it was very evident. The later seasons leaned too heavily on the villain of the season structure. Lumen, Travis, Isaac, the brain surgeon, without any real growth from Dexter himself. We watched him go through the same motions again and again, killing, covering tracks, and barely escaping suspicion. By the time we watched the final seasons, it felt like Dexter was treading water, stalling for time instead of moving toward an inevitable conclusion, one that us fans deserved. But then, there were the truly bizarre decisions. The whole Deb being in love with Dexter plotline? Yeah, no one wanted that, even if I personally saw something like that coming. It was an unnecessary, cringe-inducing twist that derailed Deb's character completely. And then there's the fact that Dexter's secret identity as a killer barely felt like a threat anymore. In earlier seasons, we felt the danger, Dokes getting close, LaGuardia investigating, Trinity exposing cracks in Dexter's life. But by the end, it seemed that no one really cared anymore. Dexter was practically walking around with a neon sign saying serial killer here and still getting away with it. And finally, we have the ultimate failure, the series finale. I mean, what the hell was even that?
What the hell is even that?
After 8 years of buildup, Dexter fakes his death, abandons his son, and becomes a lumberjack? That's not a tragic ending, it's a joke. The show was supposed to answer one fundamental question: can Dexter escape his past? Instead, it threw its hands up and said, we don't know, here's some plaid and an axe. Fans were furious. I'm furious again. I'm apoplectic again. Jerry's getting very upset. Critics shredded it, and to this day, it's considered one of the worst TV finales of all time. Ultimately, Dexter didn't just fail because it got bad. It failed because it lost its identity. It forgot what made it great in the first place, and in trying to keep the story going, it lost one thing that always made it compelling: the promise that one day Dexter Morgan's story would have to end. But instead it just didn't. It just kept going. From a bloody triumph to a lumberjack letdown, Dexter's story is one of brilliance and burnout. It changed TV. Even with its missteps, it remains a defining show of its era for sure. Then came the 2021 revival, New Blood. Did it fix anything? Not quite, to be honest. Everyone thought this was going to be the next finale, like the true finale of the show. It wasn't. It was now an extension. But at least it was like somewhat of a step towards redemption, I guess, because there was that. Like, we got to see him finally getting caught in some way. We finally got to see someone kill him even though he didn't die, because we have Original Sin, which was the next spinoff that came in 2024. And that one was really just a true spinoff in the sense of the form. It was a backstory to Dexter narrated by Michael C. Hall. And that's kind of a shame, because a lot of us want finality. I know I do, but really, I would love to hear from you. What do you think was the rise? What do you think was the fall of Dexter? And what are you excited to see in the future? Be sure to drop your comments about that right under the like button and the subscribe button. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.